Hello, let's talk about A Night to Remember, a 1955 classic of nonfiction all about the sinking of the Titanic on April the 15th, 1912. This is a moment by moment recounting, really tight, all from the perspective of the people on board. Walter Lord, um, this being written in 1955, was actually able to interview so I think it's like 65 of the survivors of the Titanic sinking. So actually, kind of, sort of original research there. It's that I came to this book from Midnight in Chernobyl author Adam Higginbotham, who had read this book and went, "Oh, this is the way to talk about a disaster, something really complex." And that book is about the disaster at the Chernobyl nuclear plant, where in that book he sort of alternates chapters of he's got the minute by minute of the reactor failure with a lot of kind of context. Now, for Walter Lord and A Night to Remember, you are on the Titanic and that iceberg is sighted toot sweet, and you're getting a minute by minute fallout. There's no long chapter at the beginning talking about the construction and the design of the Titanic. This is a book that is focusing on the passengers and the crew of the Titanic at the time, and a couple of the surrounding ships, and how long it took for them to get there, and some of the unfortunate events that made that happen so late, and resulted in a lot more loss of life than if someone had been able to get there a lot quicker to pick up the survivors of this horrible event. It's a very much a pointillist book. It uses perspectives from these survivors that he interviewed, from memoirs and from reports, to build up this kind of very kind of layered minute by minute thing. You have so many different people, but Lord is just a master at like quickly telling each person's story. You're getting a general idea of who they are, and then what's happening to them and how they are struggling through it. And this is going from the captain, the crew members, to the first class, second class, down to the very all the way down to the steerage. And him noting that, when the crash happened, that the people who got interviewed were the super wealthy. And yes, make no doubt about it. At this point, these cruise ship liners, there was a group of super rich people who were on board, who they all knew each other, and it was sort of like a little tribe in itself. And so this is a lifeboat drama. This is literally lifeboat drama, because at the time, by regulation, ships did not have to bring along the same number of lifeboats as the actual people on board. I think they only had lifeboats for like 30 or 40% of the occupants. So it became very much like, who's going to go on these lifeboats? And this is a time when it was women and children first, and that seems to have been, for the most part, well enforced, and sometimes enforced by force, having a gun there and barking out. It's like, no men are going on the ship until we've gotten all the women that we can. I think there was this sort of, it really is a really good job of capturing the kind of the unreality of it, because the Titanic hits the iceberg, and there's just like a shudder, and some people, it's just like, oh, what's happening? Or some people don't even wake up. They just, it's saying it's only like down lower that's like, oh my God, this was like a serious collision. And it unfolds over the hours, and people, are understandably like, I'm on this nice gigantic cruise ship. Why the hell would I want to get into one of these tiny boats and be launched out into the ocean? So there was like reluctance at the beginning to actually, start loading this up. People did not pour onto these immediately. They did not want to go into the water. And it was only as time went by and things slowly started to tilt that people became more and more aware of the danger they were in. And Lord does a really good job of getting that confusion, like, people just not knowing what the hell was going on, getting that, and also the confusion of, there was a ship that was a couple of miles away, and they're trying to figure out, like, is that ship in trouble, or what's it doing? It seems to be firing off rockets. It's like, and it's like, oh, it looks like it's cruising away. It wasn't actually cruising away. Wasn't sinking. It wasn't going off around the horizon. It was sinking down into the water. So there was like a boat that close, but it's the confusion, it's the kind of just not knowing what's going on is really captured well in these kind of events. And indeed, you get that. He does a good job of recording the newspapers at the time and what they were reporting, and kind of the distorted picture that came out of that in the confusion. Some of it confusion, some of it was newspapers wanting to newspaper and make flashy headlines, the clickbait of their time. It does he does actually do have a thing, a good swing at saying, like, well, why was this so significant? This is, why am I writing about this in 1955, so many years after? Why is this lingered? And it seems to have been very much, Lord's view is like, it's very much a kind of a changing of the time, and it's because you think about it, it's like it was a small little bit of carnage. That happened just before the 20th century really kicked in with the carnage, with World War One coming, and then just that all that sort of stuff. And there's also definitely the technological hubris of people were very much like, oh, technology is great, it's going to solve all our problems, and this is the unsinkable ship, and that did not pan out. This was one of these great failings of technology. And as I said about World War One, that's where technology was really going to get turned against its makers, into a churning bloodbath. So there's that. There's also very much the thing of, at this point, the super rich were the celebrity class. It's kind of funny because Walter Lord talks about how it's like, oh, well, that's not the case anymore. At this point, 1955, it's you just being super rich isn't going to make you a celebrity. And I'd say to Walter Lord, well, times change, and celebrities are not so much celebrities anymore, and the super rich are becoming yet again, Bezos, Mr. Tesla, all these other guys are definitely suddenly becoming the celebrities of the age again. Being super rich is going to, it gives you a certain amount of, giving you that certain amount of fame. There's probably even a smaller class of them. There's definitely this thing of the deference to the upper classes. It is striking. Even Lord mentions this as kind of a shift from his own time, of that all the crew, of course, were helping the first class people, and the people in the steerage were sort of left to shift on their own in this emergency, which would be, would be great outrage at Walter Lord's time in 1955, would be great outrage now. But at the time, even the people in steerage were like, oh, of course you're going to have to take care of, the rich people first. There's that kind of deference thing that was not, that was going to go away with kind of the great leveler of something like World War One, World War II, where it breaks down this kind of like, oh, the upper class, we have to do what they say, they know best, into more kind of a democratic mindset, however much that is lip service nowadays or not. And it is interesting to look at this. I think the other thing that goes with the Titanic, other than the technological, the failure, the disaster of technology, is this idea of, it's very much kind of a Rorschach test of what you look at this. Many people pull out different things, whether it's class, whether it's gender, whether it's a technology. There's all these different things that seem to have been so fruitful. I mean, you get James Cameron making a movie about this many years later, casting it as kind of as a melodrama with evil rich Billy Zane being the villain, and self-sacrificing great steerage dude Leo DiCaprio, getting the girl, or well, not, that doesn't actually happen, but sort of getting the girl. he's the romantic lead, not Billy Zane, the evil rich guy. So there's that. There's and the ideas of masculinity, of course, as a man, you're going to sacrifice yourself for the women and children, and the lowest of the low is the man who impersonates a woman to get on the lifeboat and stuff like that. It's like there's all this sort of stuff there. Actually, Walter Lord served as a consultant to James Cameron for the making of Titanic, which, for all its melodrama, does have, obviously, Cameron did a lot of technical stuff to try and get the details right. I would maybe argue that Walter Lord does a better job of depicting kind of the wide cast of the people who were actually there, and the just how the kind of it's a horrible situation and how they react in it, and in that was made the book fascinating. I think the best thing about this book is the brevity. It is short, sharp. It does not bore you with long descriptions before. It does not bore you with, it's like, it tells you about that night. There's a little bit after about kind of a little bit of the fallout, but it's really focusing. It presents to you what Lord can piece together that actually happened, and leaves you to kind of like kind of do the work after that, about how you feel about it, maybe what you would have done in that situation. I think these are all the things that kind of go through your head in that. So yeah, that is my very brief and incomplete discussion of a really cracking nonfiction book, A Nght to Remember by Walter Lord. I've been Jay. More videos later.